In today's episode, we'll also dive into the potential dangers of fluoroquinolones and confront the common misconceptions that natural supplements are always safe. Keep listening for a conversation that will challenge your assumptions and provide invaluable insights to your health journey.
The Discovery Doc Podcast, where your journey to empowered, non-toxic living begins. Join me, Dr. CeCe, a doctor of nursing practice, self-proclaimed toxin tamer, and mama of four, alongside
me, Annah Kate, your medical mystery overachiever. Together, we'll uncover the latest in functional medicine, debunk health myths, tame toxins, and provide practical tips for thriving in a modern world.
Get ready to take control of your health with expert insights, raw stories, and actionable wellness strategies designed to help you and your family lead vibrant, toxin-free lives. Let's discover together.
Welcome back to the Discovery Doc Podcast. We are here with our final conversation with Rita Rogers. We're going to really dive into it today. And we hope that you have learned so much in the last couple of episodes that have expanded your awareness and knowledge in all the things that we've talked about. And we are going to
get right back in. Right back in.
Another round.
I had to cut off these humans last week because we were going to dive into this rabbit hole of greatness. So I actually want to start with what you left off with was AI. Because I think we can tie this into especially Christianity. Holy moly, there's so much to talk about there. So you left last episode talking about that we just need to be cautious with AI. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit and your thoughts there?
Well, there's so many ways we need to be cautious with it. I believe, just simple things like, YouTube generating a reply for you to respond to somebody's comment, that's okay. But in doing so, do you even know what you were going to say? Are you going to be able to formulate those thoughts anymore? Or, would you have said something different and you just think that's what you were going to say because AI generated and you're like, oh, that sounds like something I would say. There's ways we need to be cautious with it because it's going to come into our lives and take away our ability to discern reality. We need to be cautious with it because it's going to interrupt what we believe a human to be. What is humanity? What does it mean to be human? I think there's so many aspects because AI, augmented reality, or whether you're saying like artificial intelligence, augmented reality or biodigital or transhumanism, all of those things sort of merge together. They mean slightly different things, but they merge together on the same plane. And I just think it's very scary because these overarching billionaire elitists kind of come in and they do their thing and we get distracted, and distracted's maybe not the right word because there's all these little fights we're having to make in our own lives for our own children, like medical freedom. That shouldn't even be a fight. If we had a philosophical conversation and had a basis for what it means to be free in America, we don't need to fight about this. We could be focused on these overarching issues that are coming and really already here, and be making decisions for how we want to interact with this new technology with our family before it's really in our faces and we have no quote choice. We always have a choice, but you know what I mean? When it's harder to make a choice. But it's something we need to be thinking about, but it's really hard to think about because there are all these other little things that we have to be thinking about in our day to day that shouldn't even be fights in the first place.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think
Sorry, I went a lot of places there, but
no, it's good. I think it's scary. I honestly think it's scary. I think it could be used for
it's very scary to me.
The optimistic part of me is yes, there are certain things that it could really be used for good. There are people hearing and seeing for the first time ever in their
100%.
lives that it could be really used for good. My issue is the people who have control of it. Not all people are good. And so it can really turn into something that is evil. And that does take over what humanity is, what humanity means. I think you made a really great point to even these college students who are using ChatGPT. What is it?
GPT.
Thank you. I always want to say GDP, GPT, whatever.
That's a thing too.
I don't use it. Who are using it to write their papers or like just little things like that. I don't like in that moment. It's like, wow, I got out of writing, spending 5 hours on a paper because this thing wrote it for me and I just edited it. And at that moment in time, it seems like such like a nice relief. Or even content creators using it for their captions or whatever it is. Right now, it seems like such a relief of, I can do this in 20 seconds instead of actually putting the effort and doing it, 30 minutes. But where's the line there? You're right. Where does that take over? Like, well, these are not my thoughts. This is not what I would say because I'm not writing it. But hey, it sounds good. And that is a very, very slippery slope with our thoughts, emotions, beliefs. I mean, all of that.
Well, AI is going to be like the internet. So we are the last generation that did not grow up on social media as a kid. So now these newer generations, they can't say that. So I can remember our house without a computer. I remember the first day we got a computer and the first day that we got internet. I remember that. Like, I lived in the 1900s. I've been through like, I know, like, so, but now,
my gosh,
kids will never know what it's like to look like. They don't know what life without the internet is. And AI is going to be the same way. And there are really great parts of the internet. Yeah. We are using a phenomenal part of the internet to do this interview right now and to post this interview to get to your listening ears for you to enjoy this in your own home. There are dark parts of the internet and there's the black web part of the internet that we have no business interacting with and going to. So I think that AI is part of that too, of being aware of, hey, that's not a direction that we want to go. We want to avoid that. But using AI or using the internet for beneficial purposes, I think that that's the awareness and teaching kids how to navigate that in a healthy, constructive, protected manner.
Yeah, I think the scary aspect is that it's so new. Like the thing with the internet, the internet is a little bit more tangible. It's like you can prevent yourself from going a certain place in the internet. With AI, AI is essentially limitless. So like where it could exist in time and space and what it could do to manipulate things is so different than the internet that I'm like, ooh, I just want to keep my kids in a bubble. I want to. But something else that you guys started talking about a little bit towards the end of the last episode was part of is Christianity and just how in this crazy world where there are so many things going on and so many rabbit holes that we can potentially go down. One is just maintaining a Christian worldview through all of that. And then two, I actually really want to touch on what Annah Kate was bringing up with kind of that new age, because I don't think a lot of, especially younger Christians, are discerning between what all that means. So what's something to you right now that, how are you just maintaining kind of your Christian worldview in a chaotic world?
I think the easiest way to do it is to be in God's word and make sure we're opening our Bibles as much or more than we're opening our phones. I mean, it's really hard to do that more than you're opening your phone, but being in the word. I think in America, really, like, we're a Christian society, like, is how we were founded. And so I think a lot of people take that for granted and think automatically they know what it means to be a Christian just because societally that's primarily what they see around them, promoted verbally at least. But I podcast with a gal from BC, Canada, and she is a Christian as well, and they're not as Christian nationally as we are. And yet I see the people that we have on from Canada tend to take their Christianity a little more seriously. And I think that when you live somewhere that it's a little less prevalent, maybe you take it a little less for granted. So I would say being in the Word is one, knowing that you actually should be opening your Bible and reading God's Word and not just relying on your pastor to relay to you what it means, because a lot of churches, let's be honest, are not biblically based anymore. But also just, discernment, going online and knowing that you're receiving good, solid information, and knowing that just because you hear someone say God or Christ, they don't necessarily mean the same thing. Because I do think a lot of people are being deceived, right, by New Thought and New Age, which are two different things. But falling into these camps and not really. And the medical freedom movement is one of those where there is a lot of that. I keep hearing people say divine femininity. And like, I watch my Christian friends go ahead and like the posts and, fall in line with that. And I'm like, well, divine femininity, what does that mean? And, let's unpack that a little bit, because we are not inherently divine. We have the ability to ask the Holy Spirit, into our heart, and we have the ability to carry God with us, but we ourselves are not little Christs running around.
I am not sovereign. I do not want that responsibility.
Yeah, so it's just
no.
It takes discernment, but in order to have discernment, you have to have a foundation, and you can't just wake up one day and have a foundation. You have to build that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So biblically based, there's a truth that is God, and if you're in your Bible, you understand what that truth is. And so when people say, oh, well, this is my truth, I'm like, okay, well, then that's why, because your truth is not the truth, because there is one truth and one way to the Father, and that is Jesus Christ, like, period. And Christ is a title. It is the, so Jesus is, the Son of God, and Christ, Messiah, the last king of the final kingdom. That is a title. That is not, so there's not an Annah Kate Christ. There's not a CeCe Christ.
Right.
Jesus Christ is not his name. It's Jesus, the king, the final king of the final kingdom, period. That's a title. Like, you can't. So, and this is where that new thought gets in of, oh, well, I'm going to have my own sovereignty, or I'm my own Christian, or I have my own faith, or I have my own belief system. And it's like, well, you either have the relationship or you don't. There's not an in between. And if you are in that relationship, I'm getting on my preacher box right now. If you are in that relationship,
go for it.
Then your fruit is evident. If you're not, your fruit is dead. Now, we've talked about this before in some things that we've both been exposed to, that the outside is real pretty and shiny, but the inside is completely dead. Like, there is, like, the tree is painted, but the tree isn't growing. The tree isn't doing the things. It looks real good from afar, but once you get up close, like, you don't want to take a bite of that fruit because it's there's nothing in it.
It's spoiled.
Right? So that's where the new thought is so intertwined with Christianity. And if you don't know the difference, it sounds real good, because lots of new thought leaders talk about God and talk about, the universe and the outside sources. And there is something bigger than us. And, there is an ever after, but it all gets diluted and commingled. And it's just, if you don't know what the truth is,
how do you discern?
Yeah. How do you discern? And how do you know that, like, we were talking about this, having a prayer life and meditating on the word of God is different than meditations and affirmations and prosperity gospel and all of that, because that is all self. That is not focused on God. Okay, I'm done. Sorry. Unpack that how you will.
When did this entanglement begin to occur? Because I do feel like it has kind of exploded in the last couple of years, especially with social media. Like, when these everything you're explaining with, like, new thought, new age, and all that, like, it wasn't a thing. At least it wasn't a thing in my world. Like, where did this start?
So new age is really easy to differentiate. So that's tarot and astrology and Reiki,
which has been around forever,
and all of that.
We're just putting different names on them,
right? So where the difference comes is that new thought, and Rita, you can explain more on this too, is that it is a subtle differentiation. It looks like Antichrist. It looks like, look, Satan, Satan, whatever you want to call the Lucifer. Like, Lucifer is one angel that fell, right? So Satan is the whatever, is it Greek? Hebrew, Sanskrit, whatever that is. It's the culmination of all of that, everyone in that followed Lucifer. Okay. So he looks real pretty. You did not have to teach your kids how to lie. Your kids don't lie, but when they do, you didn't teach them that.
Yeah.
You have to teach them how not to, right? You didn't have to teach them how to have a bad attitude or to so New Thought is very sneaky. It looks very much like Christ and like it's going to be a good thing, and it's, positive and universe and all the good things. So did that answer your question? And so Oprah is big on New Thought. You wouldn't, she doesn't tell you that she is, but her and Eckhart Tolle and, or Tolle, or however you say his name, Wayne Dyer, all these positive, they're great. It's good to think positive thoughts.
Yeah. Because it comes from you. Yeah.
Right. But then it's reliant on you and your positive thinking, not on your relationship with God to get you through what you need to get through. Because if I think well and bad things happen, then I didn't think well enough.
Right.
Right. So it's that there's a couple of things.
Oh, that is a weird line.
Yeah.
That is a weird line.
I feel like that's a really good description. It's just New Thought, I think, is more sneaky because it doesn't seem like it's outside of the Christian perspective, but it's relying on yourself, not God. Mm-hmm. That's a really good way of describing it or differentiating it, because I think it's sneaky. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You brought up the fruit is not there, and my parents were here this weekend because of my daughter's birthday and things, and my dad brought up, we were talking about so Donald Trump had employed a new faith department. I don't know if you guys saw this. Mm-mm. So there's a faith department he's developed in the government, and I don't know. I don't really want to get into that on here, the whole aspect of it, because whatever. I'm not for it, even though I'm a Christian. I don't think that's a good thing necessarily, not because of separation of church and state. That's not real. That's not a thing. But because I just think where it's going is not necessarily good. But he put in charge of it Paula White, who is a prosperity gospel preacher. She has a whole section on her page about first fruits, and you're going to have a blessed year in 2025 if you give $2,025 and all of this stuff. It's really dangerous. Mm-hmm. But anyway, when my dad and I were here talking about that and just kind of going back and forth, and I was saying something to him. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said we are called to be fruit inspectors. And I'm like, oh, that's such a good way of putting it. We should be fruit inspectors. We should see the fruit of people's lives, especially the people we're looking to preach to us, and inspect that and see if it adds up and lines up with the Word of God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's a really good way to discern what we're seeing in the world and see if that's something we should be following or not.
Yep, which is why you should be in your word. So when these things come up, you can push back and ask the question. And if you get blown off or get a funny answer. So here's the thing.
It's the measuring stick. Yeah. If you aren't in it, you don't know what you're supposed to be measuring up against.
Mm-hmm. And when you ask questions, demons get angry. Have you ever noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Friends, people that if they have this New Thought belief system and you ask a question that triggers their demon, that demon gets real uncomfortable and they get agitated. And it's not them as the person, it's the thing that they fellowship with.
Oh my God.
Depends on where you have your focus and where you have your relationships. Yeah. If Ava is 15 and she's hanging out with her gymnastic athletes and they're all eating well, they're sleeping, they're doing all the things, they're getting their homework done, versus she gets a new group of friends that don't go to school, they experiment with other things, they eat red food dyes and sugar and drink soda, she's going to have a different personality because of who she's fellowshipping with.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And the measuring stick is why sometimes I will have conversations with you and it's what kingdom are we building?
Yeah.
It's okay to have the conversations and talk about things, but really at the end of the day, as Christians, where do we fall? And I'm not saying that we're perfect and that our specific view is the one and only right one, but we both have personal relationships with Jesus Christ, and that's where the line is drawn.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
It is. I just think it is so easy, especially I think for like your mid 20s, maybe like new moms who are like just, I mean, on social media so much. I can like, I don't pay attention to it is my thing. It's like, I'm so strong. Yes. One, I'm too busy, but two, I'm so strong in my faith that like, I don't pay attention to anything. Like, I don't know. I pay attention to the truth and the word, and that's it. And everything outside of that is noise. That's easy for me. That's my default. But I think that it is so stinking easy to be part of that and not know it. And that's where the danger lies, is like, even if, you know, even with when we were at a gymnastics competition yesterday, one of the moms who they're Christian, and they're talking to their daughter beforehand, and they're like, hey, envision it, like it will happen if you envision it, like, you know, think to your thoughts, like, hey, it's going to go this way, and then it will go this way, because she was scared of falling, and then she did fall because it got in her head that she was going to fall. So her parents were like trying to have a teaching moment to say, hey, like our thoughts are kind of change reality, and like your thought to go up there and you say, hey, I can do this, I'm going to do it, and then it will happen. When Ava leaves us, we say, hey, who's got your back? And she says, God. And that's it. You know, like that is what our focus is on. But in that moment, like those parents are not thinking all of this. They're just thinking, hey, I'm encouraging my kid. And
think positively, which is not a bad thing.
That's where it gets so hairy, and where I feel like people can think that they are doing good. And then they hear a conversation like this and they're like, well, dang.
Yeah.
Like,
so we're called to take every thought captive, right? That's I don't remember the verse off the top of my head, but he's asked us to take every thought captive, which means when we have a negative thought about ourselves or someone else, or are frustrated or whatever, then we take that thought and give it over to God and say, hey, I clearly don't know how to handle this with my emotions. What perspective? How do I love people the way you love people? Help me do that. Help me go through this emotional thing that I don't want to carry anymore. Like, I do that all the time. I'm like, hey, I raise up my right hand and hold God's left hand, because I'm not on the right side of God. I'm on the left side, right? And say, hey, Dad, I need help. Like, I cannot do this. I'm going to crawl up in your lap and I'm going to cry. I'm going to have a snack and take a nap and then go to bed. Like, that is my life philosophy. Everything can be fixed with a nap and a snack. Like, pretty much. I mean, think about all the times that God has solved problems by putting people to sleep and giving them a snack, and then he fixes the rest. It's all good.
That's funny. That's good. I like that.
So with kind of along those lines, last question for you is, with a lot of what happens in social media and on the news, I do think is for distraction purposes. What is as a Christian, and we talked about kind of getting the word and just staying true to the word, but in terms of discerning between truth and distraction, what is something that you work, how do you work to kind of achieve that just in your daily life?
Oh, it's hard, because I am the type of person, like I think one of the ways to do that is knowing about yourself enough to know like who you are and like what kind of things pull you in. I am the type of person who is very reeled in by information and feel this personal responsibility constantly to know about everything. And I know that about myself, and I've gotten a lot better about, you know, I have a platform, and so I should be on social media a lot to maintain that platform, right? But I hop off a couple days every week and just don't care. If I lose followers for it, I lose followers. That's just who I am, because my family is important. And in order to put my family as the priority in my home, I need to actually prioritize that, right? And so I think one thing is just knowing what you are pulled to, and then kind of being like, no, I got to push that aside. But also, like you said, there is just a lot of information out there. It's really hard. I think another thing is knowing your scope of influence and what you are actually called to do. Because I see a lot of people saying like, God's called me to this ministry, and I am supposed to be doing this podcast, and I'm supposed to be doing this or that. But I don't see a lot of people saying like, I'm called to be a mother of my children, or, you know, I'm called to serve my local community. And like specifically with the last couple of weeks since Donald Trump has been inaugurated, like it has been boom, boom, boom. Like there's so much stuff. It's like overwhelming. I feel it. I feel responsible to know all this information, but what is my true scope of influence? Like I feel that it is important for me to know a little bit about AI, but is it important for me to know everything about AI? Am I really going to be able to change Mark Zuckerberg's mind on something or Elon Musk? No, I don't have their ear. But we do have a huge wind farm going in locally, and I am opposed to it. And I do have the ear of the county board potentially. So I can have some influence there. And so my time, the majority of my time, my extra time is probably a little bit better spent there. And so discernment on where your influence actually is most beneficial. Additionally, recognizing the fact that God actually gave me my kids. I don't have to question whether my call is in my home. You know, like I don't have to say, you know, because sometimes I do. Like I wonder, like, am I really supposed to be online doing all these things, you know? And I question it and I wrestle with it a little bit, but I don't have to question whether God really wants me to raise up my kids to know him, you know? And so recognizing what is actually in front of you that he did give you, that you are called to be the priority, and everything else maybe a little secondary, I think is good. And then basing everything on eternal perspective. Like, I don't know if I'm rambling, you can make me be quiet, quiet, but I get a lot of people who, like I've been like this for a very long time. I was raised to question things and question the government. I have known the government was, you know, messing with things, not to the degree. I didn't know the CIA did this and that, or the FBI did this and that, you know, 20 years ago. But, you know, 15, 20 years ago, I did know there was corruption in the government, and I was questioning the government. That's how I was raised. But all these people woke up in 2020, and it's a good thing. But I think that there hasn't been enough exercising of the discernment muscle yet. And I will get messages from people saying the truth is all going to come out. The truth is all coming out. And I'm just like, oh, bless your heart. You know, it's probably not going to happen in our lifetime. But truth will reign, capital T, eventually, eternally. And that's really where our perspective should lie. And that doesn't mean we lay down and be doormats. That doesn't mean we stop calling for the truth to come out. That doesn't mean we stop calling for accountability, you know, for people like Dr. Fauci or whatever. You know, we can still call for accountability and truth, lowercase t, on earth, but we need to maintain our hope and eternal perspective for our eternal future.
I think that's massive, because what I saw, and people very close to me, is the weight that Christians, the weight that they were putting in one person. So the weight that they were putting in Donald Trump, the weight that they're putting in RFK Jr., the weight that they're putting in these humans. And to me, like as I step back, and I'm not big in politics because I think it's all a sham. But like when you take a step back, I'm like, there is not one person on this planet who's going to get me like that, because Jesus is the only.
Our security is not.
Our security is not deemed by any living human. It's by Jesus. And I watched Christians put that security so intently and just intensely into certain political figures, thinking that they're going to be the change, the end all to be all. And I watched that happen. I'm just like, it's wonderful to have your thoughts and opinions and beliefs and things that we can hope for change on this planet. But it was disheartening to watch kind of how that separated those what I would call like very, very structured Christians, how it kind of pulled them apart to put more emphasis on a person.
I think it's a flesh
100%.
So, and you know, that's the other thing is like how us three live our Christian life is not like how other people claim that they're Christians. Oh, well, I believe that Jesus existed. I don't have a relationship with him, but I believe he existed. And then they call them Christian, or they go to church on Easter and Christmas and say, oh, I go to church and I'm a Christian. Well, there is, back to that ladder, there's differentiations of like, you know, again, going back to being known by your fruit. You can say one thing, I clearly, in the last 4 years. You can identify as anything that you want to. Doesn't make it true, but you can identify as whatever you want. So, which is why it's so important as us for Christ followers, as disciples of Jesus, not just the term Christian. Like, so pagans gave followers of Jesus the name Christian. Christians didn't call themselves that. They called themselves disciples of Jesus. And Christ was a title given and Christians was a title given. So knowing where you lie on that, it, again, is part of that. Am I really a Christian? Is this new thought? Is this like just, am I spiritual or religious?
Or am I just saying it to say it?
Right. So there is difference between spiritual and religious and having a relationship. And having that relationship is key. If you don't talk to your Father, to your Savior, you don't, how are you going to know? And that's a personal thing, right? So, okay, Rita, I do have another question. You and I have talked a lot on this episode. But Rita, if you could take your entire scope of knowledge, and if our listener walked away with one thing, what would be the one thing that from your life experience you would want them to discover? Like, do the shortcut, tell them the one thing that you would want them to discover.
Oh my gosh, this is really hard. I don't know. I guess, I don't know. This is a hard one. One thing that I want,
I'm sorry.
That I want some, no, it's okay. But it's hard because I just don't feel like, I feel like when I talk to people, they come away with some kind of wisdom and they're happy that we had a conversation, but I never feel like the person that is, I never feel like that type of a person. Does that make sense? Like, I don't feel like I am capable of imparting some kind of like wonderful wisdom on people. Like, I just don't ever feel that way about myself. But I would say realizing that we have massively overcomplicated life and at the same time oversimplified things. Let me explain that a little bit. So I think that online, social media and things has oversimplified life in a way that we have lost the nuance in conversations. Simple things like, CeCe, you were saying that like people have placed their trust in one man or Donald Trump. And I have been accused of little things like that. Just if I say something online in a 30-second clip, people will accuse me of this overarching broad statement when they don't know any of the nuance in my personal life or my personal beliefs. They've never met me before, heard anything I've said. Like, we've lost a lot of nuance. But at the same time, we've overcomplicated things by removing a foundation. And so I think if people could come away with one piece of knowledge, it would be stop listening to all these talking heads and all of this noise so intently and focus in on having a foundation for every area of your life, your health. If you just have a foundational belief system of what God made, simply, simple ingredients, moving, all of those things that are unchanging, that will always be good for us, barring the fact that we aren't robots someday. I'm just joking. But that's always going to be true. That's a foundation that's unchanging, that if you just have that for your health, you don't have to discern all these things so hard. Like, people talk about Botox, implants, birth control, pharmaceuticals, all these things in separate buckets. But if you just have a foundation, you kind of can look at things without so deeply having to research on every little aspect. Okay. Foundation for your faith life. If you have a foundation for your faith life, you have a measuring stick and you don't have to so deeply go into every little thing. Like, are crystals bad? Is new thought bad? Are all these little things bad? You have a foundation, you can measure up and you don't have to waste so much time researching. I don't think God designed our lives to be so incredibly complicated. And I think we've done a lot of that on our own. And so I would say simplify things where you can and add some nuance in where there needs to be.
That's a beautiful discovery. That's great life advice.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rita, for joining us. I've thoroughly enjoyed the last couple of weeks of conversations that we have had. And I hope just anyone listening in, the point is always just to empower y'all with knowledge, with education, with tools, with anything that can help make your day-to-day a little bit less complicated. So thank you so much, Rita, for joining us.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
All right, Rita, where can we find you on the internet, the interwebs, the social media, all the things that we were just talking about? Where can we connect with you and learn a little bit more about exactly what you do?
Okay, social media wise, you can find me at Rita Rogers Co. on Instagram, and Boom Clap Podcast is our podcast Instagram page. And then I have a website, ritarogersco.com. I'm starting to write a bit more again because I think long form is, needing a comeback. So I'm writing a bit more and emailing a bit more. And then the Boom Clap Podcast, we also record and put out wherever you listen to podcasts. We have YouTube now as well. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you.
And we'll make sure all of that is linked below. So leave us a question, a comment. Let us know your aha moment from listening to this episode. This one went a little off topic than we normally do, but I think that it is
a needed conversation.
Totally warranted.
Yeah.
And we can dive into that in the future if that's something that y'all want us to discuss or ask us questions. We are happy to go down that road for sure. So again, thank you, Rita, and go follow her and do all the things on the socials and the interwebs and be friends with Rita. She's the best. Knowing the problem is only half the battle. Now let's talk about solutions. Today, we're sharing simple, effective ways to ditch and switch fluoroquinolone. I want to put that floxin in there for some reason. Fluoroquinolone. We're going to teach you your alternatives, tell you a little bit more about some healthier, safer choices.
Yes. So number one is be informed. Be informed and an advocate for yourself. So we've said this so many times, but the ending of fluoroquinolone is
Floxacin.
Okay. So if you see the word floxacin, you know that is a broad spectrum antibiotic that belongs to the fluoroquinolone family. And you know that we are going to ask questions because of all of the very severe potential side effects that can occur and the black box warning that the FDA put on that medication for that reason. So first and foremost is be informed. We went through the possible adverse effects. That is half the battle, understanding and again, potentially severe adverse effects that can happen from fluoroquinolones. Always ask if other safer antibiotics can be utilized first. You can't tell me again unless it is a life-threatening situation where you are septic, in which case we wouldn't be asking these questions. Doctors would just be doing, right? And that is okay. I'm not saying in those moments, but if you have a UTI, if you have pneumonia and you're relatively stable, you're not in the hospital with your O2 stat is down at, 75, 80. If you are stable and have a UTI, have a respiratory infection, have some sort of, traveler's diarrhea or salmonella, we should not be jumping right to a fluoroquinolone. So ask your provider, is there a safer antibiotic that we can use first? And in many cases, antibiotics from older classes like penicillins, cephalosporins, tetracyclines can be just as effective for any of those that we mentioned previously in terms of bacterial infections with fewer side effects. Always weigh those risk factors and benefits with your healthcare provider. That is number one.
I have a question.
I don't want to answer it.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
So I want to put those two words together.
What?
Okay, so this class of antibiotics is synthetic made. Penicillin is not, yes, there's a synthetic form now, but does that make a difference in treating? So let's say you had like one-off UTI and you go on penicillin and you fix it. And then somehow in the future, because of surgery or mobility issues or other complications, other illnesses going on, that you have chronic UTIs. Mm-hmm. So
there's still other antibiotics.
Okay.
So a good example is like strep. If we have strep throat and we're given amoxicillin for it. So
that stuff is so yummy.
Oh my gosh. Anyways.
That's what I wanted as a kid. I didn't care if I got sick. I got to drink pink bubble gum.
And let's say that it's not working. Then the doctor wants to go to a broader spectrum antibiotic. Then something like Augmentin is available. So there's even other broad spectrum antibiotics that where you can still kind of take that step up if you need it without going to fluoroquinolone.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
See,
it was a good question.
It was a good question. Okay, so let's say that you need that antibiotic. We want you challenging it. We want you asking if there's a safer, different alternative if you truly need an antibiotic. And really, the first step should be understanding or knowing that you actually need an antibiotic in the first place. Is there evidence? Is there a clear evidence saying that, yes, this is bacterial? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, and you need an antibiotic, okay, great. Then let's have a discussion about which one. If the answer is, well, we're not sure, then chances are it's viral. If they cannot prove that it's bacterial, then we're not just going to take antibiotics to take antibiotics, because it's not going to do anything if it's a viral illness. So
that becomes resistant and superbugs, and that cascade is no fun. So cascade is the word of
cascade is the word of the day. But yes, step one is challenging. Hey, do I actually need this antibiotic in the first place? Is this a bacterial infection? And is there proof that it is a bacterial infection? Or is this your guesstimate? Educated guesstimate. I don't want to be disrespectful.
Yeah. Ask the questions, do the research, but make an informed choice.
Yes.
It's your choice.
And then number two, is there a safer alternative? Number three, of course, is doing, okay, what can we do outside of an antibiotic to help support our immune function rather than relying on an antibiotic when, again, most things that we encounter are viral? What can we do to just boost our immune system? Gut health is huge. Our immune system starts with our GI tract. So taking care of our gut health, making sure we're rotating our probiotics, increasing the diversity of our gut microbiome, having some spore-based probiotics in there, which get down to release all the endotoxins within the small intestine. Those are very different. So something like Saccharomyces boulardii is highly effective at eradicating something like strep because it actually can kill the bad bacteria, whereas other probiotic strains are not meant to kill anything, but they're meant to kind of like bring up your flowers and just help to, water your flowers. So getting a good kind of diverse range of probiotics in there, spore-based versus just kind of your normal ones, along with some immunoglobulins, something like Mega IgG by Microbiome Labs. That really helps just the integrity of your gut microbiome, decreases the permeability, helps to improve your immune function by giving you all those little fighter pilots. Gut health is huge. Then obviously our nutrients, our vitamin C, our zinc, elderberry, echinacea, garlic, oil of oregano. Oh, yes.
Oil of oregano is my favorite.
Garlic, oil of oregano. These have natural antibacterial, antiviral properties. Echinacea, elderberry, immune boosting properties that can help fight off infections naturally. Vitamin C, zinc, obviously high doses of those, as well as your vitamin D, is really important for just helping to bolster your immune system.
If you do not have oil of oregano in your ready to go pantry all the time, that's one that you need to add. So it acts like I'm not a doctor, if she can clarify this, but it is antiviral and antibacterial. So it is a first defense antibiotic. So when you're coming down with a cold or a flu or the aches or whatever, throw that in. It's oregano. It's not like the contraindications, like it's not going to mess with anything. It doesn't have blood thinning properties like vitamin E does or something like that. So it should be relatively safe from a holistic nutritionist perspective. That is one that you should have in your pantry all the time. During the cold and flu season, like when we go to my dad's big event, I put my dad on it like a couple of days before. He goes through it through his event. This was the first year that he was not like deathly ill and coughing by then, because he's
around hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people, shaking hands, hugging people. Like it's all their family. It's all great.
Holistic nutritionist. Can you also hit on nutrition then?
So nutrition of really taking the time to choose what you're putting in your body to lower that immune response. So again, staying hydrated, and that's water and your electrolytes. It's also kind of avoiding inflammatory foods like processed things that come with a barcode.
Yes.
Sugars. Now, granted, when you're sick, all I ever really want is like a really good grilled cheese. When I'm sick, that's what I want. Even when I have a sore throat, because it's going to help me feel like it's going to scratch it hurts my throat, but it's going to help me feel better.
If you eat nutrient dense rich foods prior to that, that's what we're saying is you're going to mitigate the chances of you getting sick. So if we eat things like consume bone broth, organ meats, fermented foods, grass-fed meats, like farm fresh eggs. All these nutrient-dense foods are going to help build up your immune system and help you fight off infections more readily.
Yeah. Single ingredient foods, eat by the season. That also helps boost your immune system. If you're eating what is in season, it's God's natural prescription of just helping you feel better through what's happening all the time. So find a resource. Actually, I can actually post one. I'll put it in our next email for this. So make sure that you are getting my emails because I'll put this list in there of what we need to eat for the season. So maybe that'll go in our monthly newsletter.
Yeah, that would be great. And then one thing also, if antibiotics are warranted, then you have the choice to protect your gut health or not. We know that antibiotics come in and they eradicate the good bacteria from our GI tract. So be preventative there. If this is a bacterial infection and if an antibiotic is warranted or needed, okay, so I'm doubling up on my probiotics. I'm taking my normal one in the morning and then that spore-based one. I like Restore Flora by Microbiome Labs, but any Saccharomyces boulardii, I'm taking that one at night. I'm also taking something to mitigate the ability for the opportunistic organisms to overgrow, like Candida specifically. That's where olive oregano comes into play, or something like caprylic acid or berberine, or even MCT oil. Those are natural antifungals that come in and help to tell that Candida to sit down. So being preventative that way can prevent you from needing to circle back and heal your GI tract after antibiotic use. I like to do so for at least 4 weeks after an antibiotic. So during the antibiotic use, then at least 4 weeks afterwards to help the microbiome repopulate.
So you should be taking your probiotic all the time and cycling through different ones throughout the year. But in the event that you do get sick, add that spore-based and then continue for 4 weeks.
Yes. And the other, I like this, the antibiotic stewardship. So I named it that because we often, so healthcare providers will run into the issue of saying, well, the patient just wanted an antibiotic. The patient just wanted a quick fix. I'm so against that. I'm sorry. It is my license. It is my name going on a prescription. I love you, patients, but you're not going to con me into writing a prescription for something that is not medically necessary. So first of all, I'm sorry, healthcare providers that feel that way. You should never be bullied into writing a prescription when it is your name and your license on the line. Anyways.
This is why antibiotics aren't over the counter. You have to have a prescription.
Exactly. So number two is if you have a viral illness, you're not going to convince me to write you an antibiotic because it's not going to work. So I'm actually doing more harm than good. But as patients, you guys can help be part of that solution. And if your doctor says, hey, this is viral, you don't need an antibiotic because it will not work, we need to be receptive of that and not push that problem and be like, well, I just want something now. It's not going to work. So you wanting to fill an antibiotic is, I understand the mental aspect of it of, hey, I'm picking up something from the pharmacy. It's going to help me feel better, but it's not if it's viral. Right. So listen to kind of all the other natural agents that we can do to help get you through that viral illness faster instead of pushing to grab that antibiotic because now we are contributing to the resistance factor here. Last little tidbit is with food is, okay, we've talked about it in terms of you as a human getting a prescription for it, but what about with our food? We touched a little bit on it, but seeking out grass-fed beef, pasture-raised poultry or chicken, and organic dairy products from farms that do not use antibiotics, that prohibit the use of antibiotics, including fluoroquinolones in their animal care. That is the biggest part. So know your sourcing. Go to your local farmers, ask them what they are using. They have to disclose that information. It's obviously much harder when you're dealing with large corporations because there are so many loopholes in terms of the packaging, the wording that can be on there. So I always prefer in terms of our poultry and our beef to get it from local farmers or like the farm that we order from in Pennsylvania. Use your local farm, use your local butchers. They will tell you exactly what is being utilized when they're small scale farmers, how their animals are being raised and what they're eating. You can definitely look for antibiotic-free labels. Most grocery stores now have products that are labeled as antibiotic-free or no antibiotics ever. But again, there are loopholes.
Marketing.
Everywhere. So it is a marketing tactic. There are still ways that these animals can be exposed to things. A great example is if it's grass-fed. It does not mean it's grass finished.
Yeah.
Those are two very different things. So you can have a quote grass-fed animal that eats grass for 70% of its life, but then eats corn for the last 30% of its life, and it's considered grass-fed.
Yeah.
So many loopholes there. In terms of pets, if you have dogs, cats, animals, ferrets, finches, raccoons, I don't care. If your animal is prescribed a fluoroquinolone, my expectations would be, from what we've learned over this past month, that you apply it to your vet too. Is this truly necessary? What does my dog, cat, ferret have?
Yeah.
Is this bacterial? Is this viral? Because like we said previously, that are our animals that we are consuming or our pets that is contributing to the problem of resistance as well. So making sure it's absolutely necessary for your animal, your domestic animal, is equally as important.
Yeah, I don't think that would ever be warranted.
I'm not a vet, so I can't talk on that. But
if it causes tendon rupture in humans,
gosh,
can you imagine?
Oh, no.
Yeah, those precious little boys you have, and one of them has ripped a tendon.
No.
You're not going to keep him
Mine
down.
have never been on medication. Not gonna like.
Yeah. Ellie is 14, and she's on a couple of things just to help her manage, and she may have the big C. So
no.
But we're gonna make sure that she's happy and healthy and go through. But she's 15. I'm not spending $5,000 and putting her through all this stuff for.
I know. And for her to be miserable.
Yeah, I love my babies. I will do whatever I can for them. But at some point.
That's a topic we should talk about. Yeah. Animals in the wild don't get the big C, but our domesticated ones sure do.
I know what we had her on a food that she got exposed and she's all lumpy bumpy. And
yeah.
Our other two are not because they were never on that food. So
it's wild.
The more you know. Mm-hmm. All right. FOMO is real. And we don't want you to have it ever. We don't ever want you to have FOMO. So subscribe now and sign up and ring that notification bell on YouTube so you can see our lovely faces and all the hilarity that ensues here on YouTube. And if you're listening to us over on Apple Podcasts, make sure that you leave us a review and let us know what you're learning. We want to see and hear your aha moments. What if everything you thought about natural supplements are always safe was wrong? We're diving into research and the misconceptions of what you need to know before believing this hype.
All right. So last week we dove into Tylenol and ibuprofen always being safe and kind of debunked that myth. This week we know what's it called? Bias.
Yeah.
I don't always want to stick to, something in conventional medicine is not good when we don't talk enough about things on the natural side that enough, in my opinion. So natural supplements, are they always safe? The answer is no.
No.
The answer is no, they're not always safe. So generally, especially in holistic medicine, we try to provide natural supplements as a safer alternative to medications. That is very true in my general humble opinion. Natural agents do provide more safety than drugs. I don't find that natural agents have the laundry list of side effects that drugs have in general, a very general statement there. But that does not mean that they do not run their risk too. And so I want to touch on a couple of these risk factors. Number one is just for the fact that there can be complete scams out there. There can be fake supplements. There could be things that are, they're not regulated. They are not third-party tested. There are many supplements, for example, that are sold on Amazon, unless you're buying it directly from the manufacturer. So let's say, I don't know, Mary Ruth's. If you are buying a Mary Ruth's product directly from Mary Ruth's storefront on Amazon, that's safe. That's theirs. The issue with something like Amazon is there can be third-party sellers who are selling.
G is selling.
Yes, you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what you're actually getting. These people can take the bottle and fill it with something completely different, and there is no way to stop that, prevent that from happening before it gets a label. Yes, before it gets into your body. So that's wildly scary for that to happen. There's a lot of counterfeit or adulterated just supplements on Amazon specifically, and some of them have been tested to contain no actual active ingredient that they're said to be, no active ingredient, or even can be laced with harmful substances such as heavy metals, synthetic fillers, or even dangerous pharmaceuticals. In 2020, there was a study that found 1 in 4 supplements purchased from unverified online vendors contained dangerous contaminants. And they were marked as, quote, natural, but actually spiked with prescription drugs or steroids.
That's scary.
That's very scary, guys. So the lack of quality control from unknown sellers is there, and from lack of third-party testing. There are absolutely reputable supplement manufacturers that undergo something called good manufacturing practices, or GMP, ensuring that that supplement is free from contamination and that their ingredient list is accurate. But unverified sellers can cut corners to save money, and it can lead to that product being very ineffective and unsafe.
Yeah.
I.e., never buy your supplements from an unverified seller. Yeah. Please
shop reputable.
You do not know what you can be getting. Because of that, then, I mean, there have been found that products can contain even illegal stimulants, such as synephrine, which has been linked to heart attacks and strokes. So the things that can be in that supplement itself, when you are told, hey, this is a vitamin C, you can actually be getting a synthetic drug that is increasing your risk of some sort of adverse effect. Heavy metals are a big one. Only go with companies that are third-party tested for heavy metals, especially in the natural world. We can find a lot of arsenic, lead, cadmium, and that bioaccumulation of those heavy metals can pose a significant threat to your health in the long run. So always go with a company that third-party tests, that is reputable, and where the actual active ingredients are accounted for.
So we've eliminated the junk products that have nothing to do, that aren't going to support us for what we are actually wanting it to do. So now we have the product, the natural product that is going to help us do whatever we're wanting it to do. And what happens now? Yes, it's a supplement, a natural supplement, and the dose makes the poison. So can I overdose?
100%. Absolutely. Okay. Yes. So just like we can misuse a medication, we can absolutely misuse and overuse natural agents as well. Just because a supplement is natural does not mean that overusing it is harmless. So, I mean, this is a kind of frou-frou example in my opinion, but like magnesium is a good example. Everyone knows magnesium. Magnesium is wonderful. There's multiple forms of magnesium that are great for anxiety and for constipation and for just feeling calm. But if you take too much magnesium, you are going to get diarrhea.
If you drink that whole bottle of magnesium citrate, it will clean you out.
It will. And so, that's a very simple example, but it's a simple example of something that is widely well known and can have an adverse effect like diarrhea on us if we take too much. So that if somebody doesn't know that and they have continuously take that high dose and continuously have looser stools and they don't know why, now I can have someone who's impacting that kidney function as well.
Same thing with vitamin C. You can OD on vitamin C.
100%. GI issues up the wazoo.
And you'll know. You'll know.
You'll know. Oh yeah, it'll absolutely health, rip your stomach apart. Turmeric is the same way with GI issues. There's also the whole aspect that there absolutely are natural agents that interfere with medication. So we talk a lot about blood thinners because of Annah Kate. So something like St. John's wort, it can interfere with antidepressants, with blood thinners, or even birth control. And the other part, and we talked a little bit about this with vitamin D, is that we don't talk enough about the toxic effect that too much can have. So something like too much vitamin A or too much iron or too much vitamin D in high doses can be toxic towards us. It can impact our liver function, our bones, even in birth defects in pregnant women when we have way too much vitamin A. So yes, you absolutely can overuse and misuse natural agents as well. It's not just conventional medication.
So like a slight overconsumption, you're just going to pee it out.
Depending if the vitamin is water soluble or fat soluble. Yeah.
So if it's fat soluble, it's going to come out the other side. But your body can handle a so if you're taking a multivitamin and you're taking another zinc or iron or whatever, another just basic vitamin, right? If it's in another supplement that you're taking. If your body has more than it needs on a low dose, it will eliminate it for you. We're talking about if you overdid it on the vitamin C, you'll have gastrointestinal issues. You'll know about it.
Right.
So
exactly. And I think something else kind of talking about what we were talking about before is the marketing aspect. So just like I don't agree with medications where you see the commercial and it's like this happy-go-lucky family and all of a sudden your whole life is like cured, but then in the background you're hearing all these crazy intense, adverse effects. In terms of supplements, you have to watch for the same marketing as well. Everything is a business. Everything is out there to cure you and help you and heal you with one magic pill. And that does not exist. So question that one thing that is, quote, a miracle pill, even if it's natural, question it. Marketing is there to have you purchase a product. It can be very misleading and it can prevent people from either seeking out medical treatment that they truly need by having a conversation with their healthcare provider because they're so inundated with that information. But two, it can cause you to consume something that you don't need. So be careful in terms of marketing and know that everything is out there for you to purchase it, but does not mean your body needs everything. So reeling it in. One, we want to make sure we are buying supplements from trusted, reputable companies that have third-party testing and clear, transparent information about their sourcing, their manufacturing process, and their ingredient transparency. So that's a big one. Two is understand what you're taking, why you need to, if you need to be taking it. And that you can either do yourself if you are, into doing research and kind of know your body really well. If you're not, then talk to your healthcare provider. Not everything we see in a commercial or, even in the natural world do we need specifically. So consult with your healthcare practitioner before going on a rampage of purchasing all these supplements that you might not need. And then lastly would be absolutely avoid impulse buys from unverified online vendors. There are so many impulse buys because of something we saw on TikTok or something that's trending and, hey, I need to take that. And reviews can also be completely they can be paid for. So don't always believe the thousands of reviews that are like absolutely magical unicorns and rainbows. Look for certifications like USP, which is United States can you say that word?
Pharmacopoeia.
Thank you. Or NSF, which international for peace of mind regarding the supplement's quality.
So don't buy it off a TikTok shop. It's not.
Please don't.
It's not for your medical. It's not for your health. 90% probably not.
Yeah.
So, but until next time,
let's discover together.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Take this knowledge with you and don't hesitate to share it with others to raise awareness and promote well-informed decisions. Join us again for a more engaging discussion that dive deep into the crucial health topics that empower you to make the best choices for your well-being. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay tuned. Before diving deeper into the wellness world, let's pause for a quick disclaimer. The information shared on this podcast is for general informational and entertainment purposes only. While we love being your Discovery Doc allies, we're not here to replace your doctor or healthcare provider. Consider us your fellow health explorers, sharing our findings as we uncover the mysteries of well-being. Always consult with a qualified medical professional before taking any action based on the content of this podcast. Just like an archaeological dig, this disclaimer may change occasionally, so be sure to check back for updates. Stay healthy, stay curious, and keep exploring with the Discovery Doc.